This is the public meeting for the Great Dismal Swamp National Heritage Area Feasibility Study. We want to learn from you, and we want to help you understand the Great Feasibility Study, how they're conducted for national heritage areas. Before we begin, I ask you to please mute your microphones unless you are speaking, so we can help lessen background noise. We will start with a presentation, a short presentation, and then we will open it up for public comment and questions afterwards. We have about an hour and a half today, and we'll go through and explain to you what national heritage areas are, the specifics for the Great Dismal Swamp study that we are conducting, and the schedule and the boundary of what we're looking at. And then you will have an opportunity to provide comments, and we have some questions for you too to help prompt discussion. My name is Julie Bell, and I work for the National Park Service Planning Office in Denver, Colorado. Before we begin, I do want to mention that we will just go over a couple logistics here for this type of Teams meeting. If you can go on to the next slide, please. So if you're not familiar with Teams, there are a couple of things that will help you let us know that you have something to say. You can raise your hand using that little raise hand button, and we can call on you. And if you have, certainly if you have a microphone, please unmute it. And if you have a camera and are willing to come on camera, please do so. We'd love to see your faces. And the other button up there shows where you can mute and unmute your microphone. If you are calling in on a phone, you can unmute by hitting *6. And also, we welcome any questions or comments in the chat as well. We'll be monitoring those. All right, I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, Elisa Kunz, who will go over what national heritage areas are, and then I will take over about halfway through the presentation to talk specifically about the Great Dismal Swamp study.
Thank you, Julie. Hi, everyone. My name is Elisa Kuntz. I work for the National Park Service out of the Atlanta office, and I specifically work with the National Heritage Area Program. And if I use the acronym NHA, I apologize. I've been working with this program for 8 years now, and it is what I commonly call the National Heritage Area Program. So we're going to start by talking about what a National Heritage Area is, and I'm going to use this image on the screen to kind of explain. This is the Susquehanna National Heritage Area. It was recently designated in 2019 as a National Heritage Area. And if you look at it, it's a lovely image of the Susquehanna River, the green rolling hills, the sun's rays pushing an anvil cloud through the sky. And it's a beautiful picture, but without a lot of detail, you wouldn't know how it connects to an NHA landscape. This landscape resembles others throughout the country, but it's the specific local resources, natural, cultural, historic, and scenic, and its pattern of human activities and the customs and traditions of the area that create it as a national heritage area. Those things that are what we look for to find out what makes something a nationally distinctive landscape. It's important for us to identify the resources of the area and also connect them to the place itself. Next slide, please. So I kind of explained what a National Heritage Area is. Here's a few things a National Heritage Area is not. The land is not federally owned unless it was previously federally owned before designation. And when I say designation, that is the formal term because it is designated by Congress through legislation to form a national heritage area. Congress tells us that it is not a unit of the National Park Service. You may be familiar with Colonial, Fort Monroe, or Cape Hatteras, which are near to this study area, but it is not a unit as those locations are units of the National Park Service. And Congress has also been pretty clear that it is not a regulatory overlay. While we talk about national heritage areas and they have designation, there is not a regulatory overlay that goes with that designation. Next slide, please. So on this slide, you will see a map of the United States. Alaska is an inset, and on the other side, you have an inset of the Caribbean islands. In 2023, the National Heritage Areas Systems Act created the last of these 62 areas. The first ones were designated in 1984 under Ronald Reagan, and since then they have grown to this many. We have them in St. Croix, Alaska, and 36 different states, or 35 different states, excuse me. In Virginia, we have three. We have Shenandoah Valley National Battlefields. We have Northern Neck National Heritage Area, and we have Journey Through Hallowed Ground. In North Carolina, we also have three. We have the Gullah Geechee Cultural Heritage Corridor. We have the Southern Campaign of the Revolution National Heritage Corridor. And we have Blue Ridge National Heritage Area. Next slide, please. So the different activities that a national heritage area is involved in can be multiple. It really depends on the community itself, what resources they have, and how they choose to talk about their area. There are broad categories that allow these regional entities to really connect with their people, to make sure they're telling the stories that their people think are important. Now, those could be conservation and natural resource protection. They could be historic preservation. It could be recreation, education, community development, and most of the time, those do lead to economic development. And on this slide, we have three images representing some different kinds of activities different kind of activities that the National Heritage Areas are involved in. So on the top, you see a sandhill crane, two sandhill cranes actually. And those are found in the, Sangre de Cristo. I always have to make sure I say the full name. Sangre de Cristo National Heritage Area. Every spring, thousands of sandhill cranes migrate through the Sangre de Cristo National Heritage Area. The community celebrates the crane's returns with the Monte Vista Crane Festival. It's one of the oldest birding festivals in the nation and the oldest in Colorado. So they really emphasize their natural resources. The middle image is a visitor at an interpretive sign in Butler Plantation in Darien, Georgia. This is in the Gullah Geechee Cultural Heritage Corridor. This visitor is descended from one of the individuals enslaved on the plantation and traveled to the site for the unveiling of a new marker dedicated to the men, women, and children enslaved there. The unveiling coincided with the weeping time, the 160th commemoration of the sale of 425 people from the plantation on March 2nd through 3rd, 1859, in what was the largest slave auction of enslaved people in history. The Gullah Geechee preserves that culture. They talk about this in relationship to the people that have shaped and are shaped by that area along the 30 miles from the Atlantic coast, from Wilmington, North Carolina, all the way down to Jacksonville, Florida. And in the bottom, you see a streetscape. This is actually Jim Thorpe, Pennsylvania, and they believed in revitalizing their historic streetscape to help help with the businesses and to preserve that historic feel of what that downtown felt like. Next slide, please. And as I mentioned, the different activities, well, there's also different types of resources. National heritage areas have natural resources, like the Sacramento Delta image that we see in the lower left-hand corner. It's a large delta system with agricultural lands and a river. And then we also have on the upper right-hand corner another river. That is the Schuylkill River, where people use the river for recreation. You can see kayakers in this image. What recreation does your area have? Resources can also be cultural in the connection with either intangible resources or historic knowledge, such as the loom in the upper left-hand corner from the Rio Grande National Heritage Area. And it's one where people want to share those traditions. What are the traditions that have been in that area for hundreds of years? And so in this image, you see a young woman who is learning how to use the loom. And then you also have in the lower right-hand corner um, an image of a built environment. And these are cultural resources that talk about the blues. This is Dockery Farms in Mississippi Delta National Heritage Area. And that is also the place where the people in the Delta consider to be the birthplace of the blues. And so we have these different resources. And again, it's how do we connect these resources to tell the stories in the landscape that make it important. And they're stories the community believes will help share more about where this area is. And so on that, I'm going to send it over to Julie, who's going to talk more about the specific work of the Great Dismal Swamp study.
Thank you, Elisa. So this slide is showing a map of the area. The pink area shaded in pink, that is our study area. So you can see it crosses state lines between Virginia and North Carolina. And the green area is the current Great Dismal Swamp National Refuge area. So you can see our study encompasses a lot more of the region than the swamp itself takes up. But of course, historically, the swamp was much, much larger and took up more of this landscape. So as Lisa mentioned, Congress is the one that establishes National Heritage Area, but they also direct the National Park Service to conduct these feasibility studies, basically collecting information that we put into report for Congress's consideration. So in January of 2023, the Congress passed legislation uh, asking us to look at areas in Virginia, including the cities of Chesapeake, Norfolk, Portsmouth, Suffolk, and the county of Isle of Wight. And in North Carolina, the counties of Camden, Currituck, Gates, and Pasquotank. So one of the things that we are tasked with is looking at the boundary that's stated in the legislation, but also trying to determine if there's areas that should be included in a National Heritage Area if it's designated that are not in the legislation. So that's one of the questions we'll be asking of you today to help us identify if there's sections of this geographic area that should be included or that should be taken out of the study boundary because they may not share the same resources and themes that potentially make the Great Dismal Swamp area nationally distinctive. Next slide, please. All right, as Elisa mentioned, we're looking at inventory of resources that may be present that document a nationally important story in this particular area. We're looking for both tangible and intangible resources. Again, tangible resources are physical artifacts, buildings, things like that we can see and touch and interpret. While intangible resources are non-material, they're more traditions and knowledge and cultures, things that are passed down through generations, give a feel to the area. And we also want to, as part of the study, make sure that those living, working, and interested in the area are supportive or not of a potential National Heritage Area designation. We want to explore if state and local governments are also supportive because you all are living in there and promoting it. And so we want to make sure that it's something that the local community is supportive of. And we also want to help identify a potential managing entity that could manage the area if it is designated. Next slide, please. All right, so feasibility studies typically take about 3 years. This one we started in 2024 by gathering information. We engaged with stakeholders such as the Great Dismal Swamp Collaborative, and we went out in October and visited the area to get familiar with it, to see for ourselves on the ground what we might see as those resources. We met with many state and local partners, and of course with the folks at the Great Dismal Swamp Refuge at that time. We also did some public engagement, more targeted public engagement, by reaching out to planners and administrators in the local governments there to get ideas from them about what they think of the resources and stories that might be told here. And then we also reached out to potential coordinating entities, those institutions, organizations that might be interested in being the managing partner for a national heritage area. From that meeting, we did get interest from the city of Chesapeake saying that they were interested. So we're going to, when we open it up for questions and comments, we'd like to hear your thoughts about that, or if you have other ideas of potential partners that could manage this area if it were designated a national heritage area. Um, so this year, the beginning of this year, we had a series of roundtable calls with experts, those that are studying the Great Dismal Swamp, that have been invested in it over generations, and they helped us with refining the themes that we were recognizing in the area and gave us more research and more references to build up our data gathering. And now we are having this public comment period. We'll go over how you can comment on the project website here in a minute, but that opened up on March 19th. Sorry, not quite May, March 19th, and it'll close on May 19th. So you have plenty of time to provide thoughts through that portal on our website. You can also write me, email me, call me, and of course, we will take into the consideration anything you add tonight at this meeting. Once we conclude the public meetings, we will complete our background research and then start drafting the study report. We anticipate that'll start maybe late this summer or next fall and winter. Once we have that study draft put together, we will have it reviewed by NPS staff and National Heritage Area staff, finalize that document, and once we finalize it, it will be transmitted to Congress and it will be made public at that time through our website. And that's when you all can read it. And then the Park Service's role for the time being will be done with this study. It is, as Elisa mentioned, it's up to Congress to pass legislation to designate a national heritage area. So we are just gathering all the information, hopefully so Congress can make an informed decision. Next slide. So as we move through this study, part of what we're looking at are 10 criteria for if an area meets these criteria, then we recommend that it has the potential to become a national heritage area. We've summarized those 10 criteria here for purposes of this presentation, but you can find all those criteria on the project website. Again, we're looking for assemblages of resources that represent a distinct story in the area, resources that are worthy of recognition and conservation and interpretation. And they have to have integrity. There has to be something to see and feel and do there. We want to look for traditions and customs that are unique to the Great Dismal Swamp. And we also, as I mentioned, want to make sure that there is public support for this and identify a potential managing entity or a few managing entities. There are some national heritage areas that are managed by a couple entities through partnerships. And we also want to make sure that the boundary that we're looking at is supported by the public. And again, we have a legislated boundary that we're looking at, but we'd love to hear your thoughts um, on what that boundary should look like if a national heritage area is established here. Next slide, please. All right, through our research and through our outreach to stakeholders and the experts that we spoke with, we identified some themes. And again, we would love your input to and your thoughts on whether or not you think these themes are reflective of what's happening in the Great Dismal Swamp, or if there's others that we should also start to look at more thoroughly. So we are seeing that this place is a place of refuge. A lot of people sought escape from enslavement here. There, of course, were many Native American tribes who flourished here and took advantage of the resources. It was also a field of conflict, again, from enslavement, from wartime, from displacement of Native Americans who had been in this land historically. And we're also seeing that there's some justice, themes of justice in the Great Dismal Swamp. And also, obviously, a very deep connection to the land. This area is so rich with resources. That's why humans were attracted to this area and thrived for thousands of years here. It's an environment of riches with many, many different resources that could be used and intermixed with both cultural diversity and natural diversity. Next slide, please. All right, I'm going to go over these questions just very quickly, but then we'll come back to them in a little bit and spend a little bit more time on them and collect your feedback on the information we're seeking from you. So again, just repeating a lot of what Elisa and I have already said, we're looking for a collection of natural, cultural, and historic resources that when they're linked together, help tell a nationally important story. We also want to know what makes, in particular, this part of Southeast Virginia and Northeast Carolina nationally distinctive, and how does the study area contribute or exemplify a distinct aspect of the American national heritage. We want to know more about what stories are being told in the area that reflect that national heritage, and why is the Great Dismal Swamp area the best place to tell those stories? And what opportunities are there for improving quality of resources through conservation, recreation, and education? We understand that a lot of that is being promoted now, but are there gaps? Are there other things that a national heritage area may help strengthen in these conservation and education and recreation areas? And again, looking for a local coordinating entity who could manage a national heritage area if one is established here, and public support. Next slide, please. So you can help us by reaching out to us. Again, this meeting is one way of doing that, but you have plenty of time to provide additional thoughts beyond tonight's meeting. You can write me, you can email me, you can call me. My address is on this slide. We have other slides that have my email and my phone number as well. But also, it's really important to hear from you in writing through the project website. And that is here on this slide, and it's been put in the chat. And we also have a story map that's linked on that project website, but Liz has put a link here in the chat as well. And that's a great interactive tool that helps you understand what we're looking at, describes the area, and there are direct links on that story map that will take you to the page where you can input your comments through May 19th. Next slide, please. Here is a screenshot of that, what we call Pepsi page. It's Park Planning, Environment, and Public Comment page with the common acronym of Pepsi. And once you click on that link, you will see on the left-hand side of the screen a button that says Open for Comment. If you click on that comment, you'll go to the next page and the next slide. And there you'll see a link for a newsletter, and that newsletter is providing a lot of the same information we're giving you tonight. And if you click on that link to the newsletter, it will take you to this page where you can comment now. And these same questions that we have on the slides are here on this web page for you to look at and consider. And you are more than welcome to give us your name and your geographic information, but there's no obligation to do that. You can also respond and comment anonymously. We just want to hear from those that are interested in this study. All right, next slide. And here is my contact information. This is also on that project website and in the newsletter, my email and my phone number. And again, a link to the project website where that will remain open throughout the study. That's where we will provide any updates and let you know where we are in the study process. And also once the final report is transmitted to Congress, it will be published on this website, and you can pull that up and read that there. All right. Thank you very much for your attention through this presentation. We do want to just get a sense of who is on our call and where you're calling in from. So